Welcome back, one and all, to Scramble Drill. We're coming in here right at the buzzer with a Theo Riddick reference just to keep me on my toes. We got the whole crew in finally, yeah. We aligned our schedules. We did some contract negotiations. We got all the P's and Q's figured out. We got Landon, Ben, and myself. We're doing something a little bit different in this one. We're hopping into a time machine because I think we have realized, this running back class, everybody knows it's very, very good. The rookies, they look great. And it's been compared to the 2017 class quite a bit because it's pretty much the only good barometer we've got for what a good running back class looks like. And so we figured, why don't we just hop into the time machine? Let's go back 2017 and see what these situations were. And honestly, it's just been fun to look at some depth charts, to look at some dynasty rankings, because these are hilarious. Landon.
We've been going through the list and just like saying names, and then all of us collectively start laughing.
Bilal Powell. Didn't think I'd hear that one.
Isaiah Crowell.
Man.
Yeah, for those that have been playing fantasy and dynasty for a while, you're gonna have a little fun on this one. You're gonna have a little.
You
fun.
might tear up a little bit.
Yeah, this is just good times past. If you are still with some of your league mates you were playing with back then, but yeah, like we said, we've heard it all. Really, the last 2 years. Like this is the 2017 class, and so we thought, well, let's look at the 2017 class because we've talked about a lot, at least Ben and I have. There's going to be guys who go places you don't want them to go. There's going to be guys who go earlier than you think, guys who go later than you think. Like we're going to get all different types of situations. So we want to actually look at the 2017 class, look at where they went, when they went, what people thought of the landing spots and how it actually turned out, and maybe see what lessons we can learn from that. Because again, we have no idea what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks with the draft. And so we just want to see how prepared we can get.
All right, Landon, why don't you kick us off? Where should we steer this little time machine and get things rolling?
So if you go to the 2017 draft, which by the way, we're just going to talk running backs in this episode, but we've been looking through this draft. This was a monster of a draft.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking fantasy studs, all 7 rounds, and undrafted guys that just turned out to be, that are still in the league today. Still in the league today. So it's a crazy draft, but we're going to look the first round. There were 2 running backs that went in the first round, which I think is pretty cool because that's what a lot of people are thinking is going to happen in this upcoming draft. So, at the 104, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette. And when a running back goes at the 104, guys, what do?
We draft them very highly.
We draft him. We draft him very highly. If you were a college football fan at the time, Ben, explain to the people what Leonard Fournette was in college.
Leonard Fournette was the second coming of Adrian Peterson. There was not a single person who watched college football who didn't say that. Like every time, I remember I'm a huge South Carolina Gamecocks fan. LSU Tigers and Leonard Fournette came to town one week. We were not good then. This was after our 4-year heyday. LSU Tigers come to town. Leonard Fournette rips off like a 90-yard touchdown run against us. And I just remember the announcers going, there's no way this man doesn't become one of the best running backs in the league. He's literally Adrian Peterson. That's what they said.
Yeah, if he wasn't playing Alabama, he never did anything against Alabama. But everyone else, dude, I have several runs of his just ingrained in my brain from back then. But the point is, he went 104. He went 4th overall. The Jacksonville Jaguars at that time, not good. Right? Actually, I think they
weren't good for a long time.
They wound up going to the AFC Championship game that year, right? That was the year they went to the AFC Championship game.
I think. Blake
yeah,
Bortles and
but
Leonard
the year
Fournette.
before that, they were not very good. And I'm looking, in 2016, their top-ranked running back was TJ Yeldon at RB 34 in fantasy. So you have this guy who everyone thought monster of a talent, like literally perfect talent, right? He goes at the 104. He walks into a situation where the top running back was RB 34. Let me see. What were the other running backs on that roster?
TJ Yeldon had 465 yards rushing. And he was their top back.
465 yards. Yeah, he was their top back. You're talking about Leonard Fournette, TJ Yeldon, and Chris Ivory was the RB3 on that roster. Chris Ivory. Come on. So, like, it was a great situation. And here's the thing about Fournette. If you've been playing for a few years, you know he's not a part of the NFL anymore. He hasn't been really dynasty relevant. I mean, he kind of was in Tampa, I guess. Playoff Lenny was a thing for a little bit. But his career in Jacksonville was short-lived, and right, he was a disappointment, if we can be honest, right? He was a disappointment.
Yeah,
but at
only
the
like
same
one top 10
time,
season, I think.
yeah, he had one top 10 total finish. At the same time, his first 3 years, he was top 10 in points per game every year.
Yep.
Even the disappointment that he was, he was still like, I think he had 17 points per game his first year, 15 his second year. I don't exactly remember what it was his third year. I looked it up before we started, but he was still like ARB1 on a per game basis. So what do we learn from this? Obviously, the guy that is comparable here is Ashton Jeanty. He's the guy who's the great talent. He's the guy who's going to go top 12, maybe top 10, maybe
he could
top
go as
6.
high as 106.
Yeah, maybe he might
And
go with the 106.
Dude, if that happens, it's literally the Leonard Fournette situation because the Raiders don't have a running back. It's dadgum Alexander Madison.
And McCormick. Wasn't his name McCormick?
Yeah. And I think the same thing, like neither of those guys even cracked the top 20 running back.
No, they didn't.
Right, yeah.
In fantasy.
Yeah. So that's why I think this is so relevant. My point is, even if Ashton Jeanty is even if he turns out to be a disappointment, dude, if you go top 10 as a running back,
You're good.
in the
You're
NFL, you're gonna be a top 10 running back year one. You're just gonna be. Like I think Leonard Fournette's probably his worst case scenario. Is that fair to say?
I think so.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, I think that's
Like that's the
concerns. The concerns with Leonard Fournette at the time, now that I'm reading his profile back then, people were concerned that he was just a 2-down back, that he wasn't a 3-down guy because he didn't catch passes. Actually, turned out he wasn't that bad. Yeah, he didn't
have to.
He really wasn't that bad of a pass catcher, but it was just he was on a terrible team, and so he was kind of limited. But he had all the volume, which is, I mean, that is probably worst case scenario, yeah, for Jeanty.
So my point is, even if you have reservations about the Raiders landing spot or wherever he goes, dude, if he goes that high, you're just going to trust it. Like, do not get cute. Worst case scenario, he's a top 10 guy in points per game for 3 years. And at some point in those 3 years, you can get out of him. Like, people will trade for him. But,
I was just like to piggyback off of that. I remember back, I mean, this is like a long time ago, but I remember when we were in leagues and got the guy who had Leonard Fournette, like, you know, I was thinking about trading him and like, you know, he was shopping around and stuff. I know you're sitting there like, even after 3 years of Leonard Fournette kind of being wishy-washy, you're like, dude, I could get Leonard Fournette on my team. Like he held his value for so long because of that. So even if Ashton Jeanty is bad year one, he's going to hold his value. It's not going to, like, it might dip a little bit.
Right. I even think back 2 years ago when Bijan from an eye test looked great his rookie year, but there was Cordero Patterson, there was Arthur Smith, there was all this garbage going on. He was still the RB1 at the end of the year. Like, no one had wavered. So Jeanty, we talk about running backs don't hold their value as well. Well, he's going to. You can lock him in. He is going to. The next running back taken was actually at the 108, and this was another electric college player.
Yeah.
Golly.
Absolutely electric college player. He went to the Carolina Panthers, and it was Mr. Christian McCaffrey.
You
Christian
know him, you
McCaffrey.
love him.
You know him, you love him. And Christian McCaffrey walked into the league. Do you know how many running backs were on the Panthers roster?
I believe
Not at the time of the draft. At the time of the season starting.
I now know you had Jonathan Stewart and a practice squad player.
Jonathan Stewart and the GOAT, Fozzie Whitaker. The greatest player of all time, Fozzie Whitaker.
Now you see why we were cracking up before this, because the names we're about to pull out of this hat.
The names are crazy. I had a friend. I went to a Panthers preseason game, and I had a friend, after Fozzie Whitaker had an 8-yard carry, say he would make the Hall of Fame one day.
And he wasn't kidding.
He said out loud, he will be a Hall of Famer.
That's incredible.
He did miss that by a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. But the point is, McCaffrey, again, these first two guys, they walked into stellar situations. Like top 10 draft capital. Now, we don't think both Hampton and Genty are going to get top 10 draft capital. But I think they're both going to go in the first round. And I think in this day and age, if a team takes a running back in the first round, it's a position of need, and they're going to be walking into a good spot. Now,
Well, look at Najee
if you'll
Harris
remember,
back in the day.
yeah, exactly. If you'll remember, when McCaffrey came out, he was like 200 pounds. Was he even that when he came out?
Oh, he was small.
He was
I remember
right there.
the year or the year after when he bulked up, and you sent me a picture of him. You're
Year
like,
3.
dude, is this man? There's no way they're not testing him. There's no way they're not going to test him.
Yeah. Year 3, I think my quote was, they gave Christian McCaffrey the Captain America serum.
Yes.
Whatever they gave Captain America, that's what they gave him in year 3. But coming in college, a lot of his electric plays were like punt returns and kick returns. Now, obviously, the Panthers liked him enough to take him in the first round, but I remember at that time there were serious like reservations. Can this guy run between the tackles was the thing. Like the thing was, oh, Cam Newton's going to run between the tackles, and they just have McCaffrey to get out in space. Do you guys remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a fair judgment. Cam Newton could run between the tackles. That was fair.
It was a defensive
In
lineman
case you
playing
forgot,
quarterback.
Cam Newton was a very big man.
Yeah, he was a big fella. But the point is, Christian McCaffrey, right away, I think he finished like probably RB 15-ish or something his rookie year.
I think he was RB 10. I think he was 10.
10. Okay, 10. He got a little better his sophomore year, and then year 3 is when he became the greatest running back in the history of fantasy football. But what do we learn from Christian McCaffrey? Even if there is a guy that you have personal reservations about, just trust the draft capital. Just no matter what. If someone goes in the first round, even if you think Omarion Hampton is RB 5 in the class, if he goes in the first round and none of the rest of the guys do, just trust it. Even if you have reservations. Like, there was a lot of people who thought, oh, McCaffrey will never be able to run between the tackles. Yeah, how do they look now?
It's also one of those things where if you're looking at it in terms of a process, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find at least for fantasy purposes, a running back drafted in the first round that's not good. And by good, I mean top 12 finishes at least once. And this is like worst-case scenario, one top 12 finish your first 3 years in the league if you're drafted in the first round. Like Trent Richardson was it, and that was like 10 years ago. So in the last 10 years, how many guys have we had that like stink? And by stink, I mean one good, like really good fantasy year. Not very many, at least if you don't factor in injury. So process-wise, Christian McCaffrey had concerns coming in. Obviously, he turned into what he turned into, and the upside was there. But I think the lessons here are, if a guy gets first-round draft capital, don't overthink it. Like, just don't worry about it. He's going to be good because he's got first-round draft capital.
Yeah, you can say it about the second round too for a lot of guys, but they don't draft running backs in the first round just to fill a position. Like, this is a true weapon they have envisioned.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say like a second round guy can't actually be better, but I mean,
we've seen it happen.
I just feel so. It's just so safe to take a first round running back. It's just so safe to take that. There's second round running backs that
year
really
option baked in their contract too.
That's a big thing. That's a huge deal. There's second round running backs that really like don't get a lot of run at times. I mean, look at Zach Charbonnet. Like, I know he had Kenneth Walker ahead of him, but like that happens. It is rare that, like, what's the lowest a first round running back's going to play? What Jahmyr Gibbs did his rookie year, and he won you leagues at the end of that season.
10. He was like the RB10 his rookie year.
RB10, and he had most of them. Like, a lot of his points in the second half, he won you the league, right? Like, that's what we're talking about. So,
even in this class, looking at some of these rankings, there were some people that had Joe Mixon, who was a second rounder, ahead of Fournette because of perceived skill set and just like the situation. And if you were to poll people at the end of, like, after their first 4 years in the NFL, which one you would prefer for fantasy football, I'm trying to remember back. I think it might have been a push at worst. And a lot of people might have preferred Fournette because back in the first couple of years in the league for Joe Mixon were fine, but they weren't great, and he dealt with injuries, and he was on a terrible Bengals team.
Yeah, people forget the pre-Joe Burrow Bengals teams that he was on.
So frustrating.
Yeah,
I owned Joe Mixon pre-Joe Burrow. It was so frustrating.
There was a conversation. I remember this. We started the Mully League in 2017. I think it was a year or two later we did our actual dynasty startup. But the two of you were arguing Dalvin versus Joe Mixon because y'all were both had picks at the end of the first round. And I think, Josh, you went with Joe Mixon and were furious after that first year.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't work out great. It worked out great for me. I loved it. But you have to say, Josh put his money where his mouth is. He had the pick on the board, and he made Joe Mixon. But yeah, but I think there's a lot of similarities. I think we're going to get 2 first-round running backs in this class. Now, in 2017, we'll move on to round 2. In 2017, the next running back off the board was Dalvin Cook. He went at the 9th pick in the second round. The pick 41, I believe that is. Yeah, 9th pick in the second round. Obviously, he went to Minnesota. So, Dalvin comes in, and it looks like a great landing spot now, but at the time, Latavius Murray was there. Jerick McKinnon was there. They had another. I feel like they had another back too. Jerick McKinnon was like a really good third down back at the time. I mean, he's still kind of in the league, kind of relevant now. And then Latavius Murray was like a really good player. So
we forget how good Latavius Murray was.
Yeah, Latavius Murray, he was good in Minnesota. Then he obviously goes to the Saints and had a little bit of time there. He went to the Bills and had some time there. Like, Latavius Murray bounced around a lot. I think
he had a high season, a really good season with the Raiders at one point too, didn't he? He ran for over 1,000 yards.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe I do remember that. So, I mean, you think back now, you're like, man, Dalvin, he ran like he was a monster for years. But at the time, and I believe he got hurt his rookie year, or did he get hurt his second year? He got hurt his first or second year.
It was the second year.
It was the second year? Okay. So, but he came in and it was like, he's going to be splitting carries. He's going to be in a committee, right? That was kind of the idea around Dalvin, even though he went in the early second round. And we know what Dalvin came into. Or, we know what Dalvin turned into. Maybe it took a little bit of time. He really came on strong at the end of his rookie year, I remember, and then he got hurt in his second year, and it was like, dang, he was going to be so
good.
Was
it an ACL he had?
I believe it was an ACL his second year. Yeah, I think he played like 6 or 8 games his second year. And then obviously he comes back from that, and he was a top 5 running back for 4 or 5 years straight or something?
Yeah, he went RB6, RB2, and then 16, 11.
Okay, so he had 2 top years.
Two dominant years, and then he got hurt again in 2021, and then he was top 10 again in 2022.
Yeah, and even so, every year, even when he was getting hurt, he was still really high in points per game.
But I mean, even if I'm looking at that too, like McCaffrey had his year like RB2, RB1, then a couple injury riddled seasons, and then he bounced back. Like a lot of these guys, this just happens with running backs. Like they'll be great, then they'll have the injury year, then come back later.
Right. I think over the last 10 years or so, the RB injuries, when they're this level talent, like when it's a 4th round, 5th round guy and they get injured, that could be it. But when you got talent like McCaffrey, you got talent like Dalvin Cook, like a lot of these like 5 or 6 of these running backs in this class, an injury doesn't kill you. Like it obviously stings, it puts you down for a little bit, but these guys come back. But I think back then you would have seen Dalvin going into a little bit of a crowded room, and it just didn't matter. Just because the talent won out. Even with injuries, even when the talent is going to win out. So what I think we learned from this pick is even if you don't love the landing spot of a 2nd round running back, just take the talent. Do not reach on a 4th round guy with a better landing spot. Take the talent, even in a crowded backfield. That is what is going to win. That's what value is going to hold in Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yeah. No, he's going to be the same as like Jonathan Taylor, I think, went in the 2nd round his rookie year.
Yeah.
And they had a really good Marlon Mack had a really good season the year before.
Yeah.
I remember because I owned Marlon Mack, and then they drafted Jonathan Taylor. We will talk about it, as we go on through this list. But another situation of 4th round running back was really good. Then they take this guy in the 2nd round and destroy him.
Yep.
Yeah, Marlon Mack had like 1,100-yard season, didn't he?
Yeah, no, I was counting on the guy. I was like, dude, I got Marlon Mack, and he's in my flex spot. Oh, I'm going to be set. Here comes Jonathan Taylor.
And then here comes Jonathan Taylor. And again, what we've seen so far, we saw it with Dalvin. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about Jonathan Taylor. Those guys' rookie years, they started slow. Like,
yep.
Not from a talent perspective, but just from a snaps perspective. They were just not getting the run we wanted them to. It might take these guys time. Like Dalvin, he goes into this crowded backfield. Maybe it takes a little bit of time, but eventually the talent's going to win out. Eventually the coaches get tired of not winning football games, and they think, you know what? Maybe we put our best players in.
I don't know why they always do that, but it's a thing.
So it might be frustrating, but talent is so much more important than landing spot. Now, a great landing spot plus talent makes an elite asset. But if you got to pick one, landing spot or talent, go with talent.
The landing spot.
I think it's too. It's also crazy.
Take the talent. I don't know why I said landing spot.
Yeah, why did you say landing spot?
Don't take landing spot.
I meant talent. I meant talent.
I think it's crazy too, just to look back at some of the like post rookie draft rankings about some of these players, because like things have changed so much. Like you've got names in here that they have no business being in here, and some of the reasons why, right? Like some of the reasons why players are ranked above other players are like silly reasons. Like Leonard Fournette goes at the 104, and I know he turned out the way he turned out, but he's like the 4th or 5th pick in a mock draft because of like perceived landing spot limitations and ceiling limitations. And like ultimately, if you were to do this as a redraft, 5-6 years later, I mean, yeah, he probably would have been like the 4th or 5th pick. But if you're doing it at the time, like there's I don't know, man. There's a process to this that has changed quite a bit with fantasy football. So like there's somebody out there that just sold for 1st round picks, and then they came away with Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, like kill people.
And
there's a guy who won
again.
like 3 straight championships.
He took George Kittle and Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round.
Oh, Lord help us.
But that is a good point. Like 2017 was kind of like, we started our Dynasty League in 2019 is when we turned our league into Dynasty. The Granddaddy of them all actually started in 2017. But I feel like this is right around the time people really started jumping on the Dynasty bandwagon. Like Dynasty was around before this. I know guys were making videos before this. I know they had rankings before this. Like, it was big, but I feel like this class is like when everybody started jumping on the
Everybody's like,
Dynasty
oh, we got
bandwagon.
all these young guys that are really good. Maybe we should just like draft their teams and then keep them.
It's like
Yeah.
I don't want to drop Christian McCaffrey. What?
Yeah, it's
I don't want to have to
it's
fight
more
somebody
fun
to
have
get
Joe
him again.
Mixon than LeGarrette Blunt. Yeah,
Ain't that the truth?
ain't that the truth? So speaking of Joe Mixon, the next running back taken in this draft was Joe Mixon. He went in the middle of the second round, so really good draft capital. One interesting thing about Joe Mixon, one, he walked into a landing spot of not a great offense. Remember, this is pre-Joe Burrow Bengals. Jamar Chase was not walking through that door. Jamar Chase was in middle school or something, whatever he was, maybe high school. So it was not a great offense. It was Josh, your guy, Giovanni Bernard was on the team.
Man.
Justice Hill was on the team. So Justice Hill and Gio were there for like
Jeremy
2 or 3
Hill.
years together, and they were okay.
Jeremy Hill.
Oh, Jeremy Hill. Yeah, Justice Hill. Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard were
Jeremy
there
Hill.
for a few years together. So it was maybe kind of crowded, but those guys weren't elite. The interesting thing about Joe Mixon is, if you'll remember, in this same draft is Samaje Perine. They were at Oklahoma. They were both studs. They both got drafted here. Samaje went in the 4th round. But that reminds me a lot of the Ohio State situation this year, where if you'll actually remember, at Oklahoma, Samaje Perine was the starter.
Yep.
Like, Samaje Perine got more of the workload than Joe Mixon did, right?
Samaje Perine holds the all-time single-game rushing record for college football.
Yeah. People think now, like, Samaje Perine's like a third down back, basically, now. Back then, he was like a big lumberer. He was like the big dude who didn't catch passes. He just ran. And Joe Mixon wasn't necessarily a scat back. I mean, he did everything, but he was more of the receiving back, right? But obviously the NFL was like, yeah, but this guy's way better. They took him 2 rounds ahead. But Mixon,
It was kind of that
I just see a
same
lot of-
argument at Oklahoma, too. It's like everybody knew Perine was the starter, but people who watched the games were like, Mixon's better.
Yeah, and he wound up going 2 rounds before him. But then again, Joe Mixon, like Josh mentioned, couple years that, like, he did not burst onto the scene and just become an RB1 right away. Like, I remember, Ben, you and I were talking not that long ago. I think it was the year before, the offseason before Mixon's last year in Cincinnati. We were like, this dude's not that good. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, I think so.
We were like, I don't think Joe Mixon's that good. Like, he's in a great situation, right? Great receivers, Joe Burrow, everything. But we were like, I don't think he's that good.
I think he's just volume. That's it.
Yeah.
Which is,
But obviously,
in
Joe
the
Mixon's
end, that's a lot of what you chase is volume.
A lot of what you chase is volume. And Mixon, he's had a great. If you took Joe Mixon and you've held on to him for this long, first off, there's probably no one that's done that, right? Like,
Nobody held on to him for the entire
No.
career.
I wonder
If
if
you
there's
have
any,
messages.
like, I wonder if there's anybody out there who, like, took one of these guys and still has them. Like, you still have Alvin Kamara.
That'd be
You
amazing.
took him in 2017. You still have. There's one guy like that in our Mully league. There's one guy who's had Saquon Barkley since he was a rookie. That's the only player
I remember that.
that's the longest tenured player in that league. Guy still has Saquon, and that obviously turned out well this year. But again, with Mixon, just trust the talent, trust the draft capital.
And remember, too, Mixon was actually the youngest player drafted in the entire class.
Yeah.
He was like 20 years old. Super young. He did have some off-the-field issues when he was at Oklahoma, so that hurt him
Yes,
a
he
little
did.
bit, too. But I'm looking at some of this, too. He actually, Jeremy Hill was coming off a somewhat good year, but he had an ACL injury, and he was in his contract year. So that's a big thing to watch out to is the contract stuff.
All right, so we'll move on to round 3. And round 3 is where,
Get old
I mean,
Alvin
I-
Kamara.
yeah,
There
but
he is.
he's been the best one. He's been the best one. Like, I know McCaffrey had the season of season, and he's had 2 seasons of seasons, but he basically gave you zeros 3 years.
Yeah.
McCaffrey did. But Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's got to have the most fantasy points for any flex or for any running back since he entered the league, right?
That would make sense.
There's no way someone else has. But the point is,
he
he goes in
hasn't
the early
missed-
third round. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say he's missed time, but he's never missed like a season or anything like that. He's missed a few games during season.
Right. But he goes early third round. He goes the third pick of the third round, which if a guy goes early third, like it's kind of what happened to Trey Benson a couple years ago. Like we kind of consider that second. Maybe that's us just being like wanting it to happen, wanting it to be a
him
thing.
into the second round pick.
Yeah, we're like, that's a second round pick, right? That's how I viewed Trey Benson now.
Yeah.
James Conner signs an extension and that, whatever. But Alvin Kamara goes in third round. And this is one where Mark Ingram was coming off an RB8 finish.
Yep.
He was the RB8 the year before this. Mark Ingram was. Now, some people were thinking, even at this time, Ingram was slowing down or whatever. But still, you get drafted to a place where a guy just finished RB8, there's definitely some reservations about that player. This was a guy who was like on waivers in redraft leagues.
Which is like, I think that's like the crazy part of this, because you're looking at Kamara and he's still perceived like the starter, but he's not a starter. This is a full committee, but it's a high level committee, I guess. It's the Sean Payton committee.
Yeah.
Like Andy Reid and Sean Payton, I feel like were viewed as, they'll be good. They'll be fine. They play for Sean Payton. They play for Andy Reid. And also Kamara comes into the league with that pass catching skill set where it's sort of like, and this would be optimistic, but it's like the Trevion Henderson kind of skill set where it's like, just get the guy like 12 touches. He's going to be really good. And when you have a thumper like Mark Ingram, you can also filter in somebody like Kamara and then, oh yeah, they play for Sean Payton.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, like this is kind of the Lions blueprint as well. And Dan Campbell he cut his coaching teeth under Sean Payton. Like he was around tight ends coach at this time. So he saw Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, and obviously that's kind of what David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have become. But the point with Kamara is, like, I guarantee you this is going to happen. This is absolutely going to happen in this draft. The Mark Ingram owners were pissed when this came across the bottom line. Oh my gosh. The guy finishes RB8, and then you draft a guy in the early third round, and obviously he turned in to be, the best running back in the class. Like, I guess the top end talent was McCaffrey, but he turned in to be the guy you wanted of this class.
Yeah.
So what do we learn from this?
Believe it or not, Kamara his rookie year finished at RB3, and Ingram actually got better and finished at RB6.
Yeah. What do we learn from this? One, Kamara was literally in redraft. He was like 14th, 15th, 16th round pick or on waivers at the beginning of the year. Like, that's where this guy came from. And he turned into the RB3 and like a legit RB3. At the end of the year, he was probably the last like 10 weeks. He was probably RB1 if I had to guess. Or was that was
Todd he was scoring like 25 points a game.
Yeah, it was insane. Just because one of these guys goes to a place with an established back, do not write them off. That's what we can learn from Alvin Kamara. Do not write them off. Mark Ingram was RB8. And you know what? Next year, he was RB6. It just turns out Alvin Kamara was RB3.
And two, we're also not mentioning the landmines that are in here as well, because there's a few of them. And this was what's so fascinating about this part of the draft, when you're getting into like third round draft capital. Alvin Kamara goes early third. A guy goes mid third that nobody's ever heard of by the name of Joe Williams.
Yeah.
That's like third round draft capital. That's workable. You feel pretty good about it. And he goes to the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan. They have Carlos Hyde, who hasn't been healthy, and people are looking at Joe Williams like, hey, if Carlos Hyde is going to miss 5 games a year, this guy might take the backfield. And so you have these situations too where it worked out so well for Kamara, and then you've got Joe Williams going to, you could argue, I mean, Kyle Shanahan turned into Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, at the time, he wasn't a proven head coach. But now we know what Kyle Shanahan is. He goes to a Kyle Shanahan offense, and, like, we've never heard of him. So I don't know what the lesson is in that.
And Kyle Shanahan, he was an OC in Atlanta, and Devonta Foreman had just been the guy.
Right.
He had just been RB6 or whatever. Now, what'd you say that guy's name was, Josh?
Joe Williams.
He actually went in the 4th round. Yeah, he actually went in the 4th.
Okay.
He was not a 3rd round. He was
I'm
a 4th
looking for
round.
Joe Williams here. I'm like,
My bad.
I don't see him.
He was a 4th round pick. Yeah.
My bad.
I'm going
There's
in order
other-
of running backs taken here. The next running back taken was Kareem Hunt in the
Okay.
mid-late 3rd round. He went the 22nd pick in the 3rd round. And if you guys will remember
Before he kicked that
right?
woman?
before he kicked that woman and shut that casino down, he as a rookie, he led the league in rushing.
Yeah.
This was Alex Smith, right? Mahomes was on the team. Alex Smith started. Kareem Hunt was the league leader in rushing. And that was so crazy because Andy Reid was like the guy who never ran the ball. He was like the guy who only throws the ball. People think about LaShawn McCoy in Philadelphia. Chip Kelly was the coach when LaShawn McCoy was going off in Philadelphia. Andy Reid was the guy who did not throw the ball at all. And Kareem Hunt led the league in rushing. Do you guys remember the Chiefs' number 1 running back the year before Kareem Hunt got there? We were
Jamal
talking
Charles.
about him
Was
before
it-
this.
There was 2 guys. It was either Sharkandrick West or Spencer Ware.
It was Spencer Ware.
Oh, did they cut Jamal Charles the year before that?
They cut
Jamal
Jamal,
Charles-
Charles
when was
before
Jamal
A
the
little
draft.
before that, yeah. A little before that, yeah.
Okay. It
Yeah.
was a little before that.
Which
Spencer Ware was huge.
Spencer we were talking earlier. We were like, was he like 235? I was like, that's a little generous. We were quickly
This dude was
approaching
Cam Newton.
250.
Yeah.
Cam
Yeah,
Newton.
I don't know
at
if you remember
5'9".
Eddie Lacy, but
Yeah.
similar
We
vibes.
were-
Similar vibes.
Quickly approaching 250. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he wound up being obviously great. And if he wouldn't have gotten the off the field issues, 1, I would have won 1 more championship in Mully, and 2, he would have been. I mean, people were talking about him as like one of the best backs in the league, if not the best back in the league. Back in the league. So I guess what you can learn from this one is like, even if you don't love the scheme or the coach reputation, whatever, again, if it's talent, if it's 3rd round and before, you're taking the guy. You're just trusting the talent, even if you don't love the scheme, whatever. Trust the talent, trust the top 3 draft capital.
And 2, Kareem Hunt came from Toledo. So he's not a Power 5 guy. He's not a super
Right.
heralded guy. People knew he was good. He went in the 3rd round. We also happen to have, I know Central Florida plays in the Big 12, but we also happen to have a guy in RJ Harvey he's not from like a power school. UCF is technically a Power 4 school now, but I don't think anybody looks at them as like some sort of a powerhouse sort of a thing. You got a guy who's talented coming from a smaller school, probably going to go in the 3rd, maybe the 4th round. So I don't know.
Yeah. You got several guys like that in this draft class. Like there's the Cam Scattaboo, DJ Giddens guys as well. Like those guys passed the eye test. They put up a lot of stats. They're probably not going to go. None of them are probably going to go ahead of like Trey Hendrickson or Quinshon Judkins, but 3rd round, yeah, I could see all of them going in the 3rd round. Not saying they will, but
Yeah, third round, day 2 that's where I feel really comfortable. That's like where you feel good about taking them. Once you get in the 4th round, you'll see I'm gonna talk about at least one guy in the 4th round. Once you get there, it is so unpredictable what the outcome is at that point. But 3rd round, you feel good about. There's one other running back that was taken in the 3rd round.
2 others.
James Conner.
Mm-hmm.
Was there 2 others?
Donta Foreman.
Oh, Donta Foreman.
He didn't pan out.
Donta
he did
Foreman,
not pan out.
He did not pan out. He
He was
tore
injured.
his ACL immediately, or he
his
had a
Achilles.
bad injury.
He tore both Achilles, I think.
Oh shoot! Okay, he tore both Achilles. So, okay,
Just
if a
didn't
guy
work.
tears both Achilles, don't draft him. How about that? How about we go there? How about we go there? It's hard to. I mean, it's hard to learn something from that one because of the injuries. But the last guy taken at the end of the third round was James Conner. And now this one is interesting because Mark Ingram was seen as like he had a really good year.
Le'Veon Bell?
But he's not. He's not an elite guy. Le'Veon Bell was that guy. He was at this
Considered the
point. At this point, Todd Gurley really broke out this season after this draft. At the time of this draft, Le'Veon Bell was considered the best running back in the league, along with, oddly, David Johnson. But we won't talk about that. But Le'Veon Bell was the guy. Le'Veon Bell was absolutely the guy. Here's the thing about Le'Veon Bell, though, that no one thought was a big deal at the time. He was going into a contract year. And no one thought anything about it. Like, everyone was like, oh, Le'Veon Bell, he's obviously going to get an extension. Like, there's no chance he doesn't get an extension. Fellas, did he get an extension?
Not from the Pittsburgh
he did
Steelers.
not.
He did not. That was a crazy situation because that happened like right before the next season after this one. But the point is, James Conner, he goes in the third round. He's like clearly behind. And back then, Mike Tomlin was like, he was using one running back. Like Le'Veon Bell was getting, 90% of the snaps or more?
It was
Yeah.
all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so James Conner was a guy who, if you drafted him in a rookie draft, you knew, like, maybe he's either a
that was a
handcuff.
third round dart, bro.
It was a third round dart throw. It was a handcuff, and who knows? Maybe the craziest thing in the world happens, and Le'Veon Bell doesn't get extended. Well, that's exactly what happened.
Surprise.
Well, I remember
surprise.
the year that Le'Veon Bell ended up sitting out. James Conner was
Yeah.
on waivers prior or after
Right.
or prior to week 1. And I picked him up, I think. I had him at one point. I think it
No,
was
you
the
did.
year that
You did.
Le'Veon
Yeah,
Bell
yeah.
was out. And I think
you
I
did.
picked him up before week 1. And then he was great. He was like RB12 that year.
Yeah, he had a monster year. And he was actually probably better than that on a points per game basis. I think he missed some time. He was fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic. Again, it just goes to show, even if you don't love the situation, go with the draft capital and the talent. That's been the takeaway from like 4 of these guys. But that's really what it is. That is really what it is. If you chase landing spots, there's going to be a lot of guys there's going to be a lot of Damian Pierces if you chase landing
Yep.
spots. There's a guy that we've talked about him already. I'll talk about him in the 4th round. Samaje Perine. He goes to the Redskins. At the time, their running backs were Chris Thompson and Robert Kelly. I mean, they had nothing. And at the time, Kirk Cousins was there still, and their offense was like kind of okay. Like, it was Pierre Garçon. It was, they had a few guys. It was Jordan Reed was a monster back then. Like
Oh, man.
they could move the ball, right? They could move the ball a little bit. This was seen as a great landing spot. If you would have said, hey, I could either take Samaje Perine, who was a starter in college and had a great landing spot, or I could take Joe Mixon, who was his backup in college and got not a great landing spot, I guarantee you a lot of people were taking Samaje Perine over Joe Mixon. I guarantee you they were. But again, landing spot is not what we're chasing here. Talent is what we're chasing. Draft capital is what we're chasing. Literally, you just go through this whole draft and that's all you see. And yeah, there he is, Joe Williams that next year, running back out of Utah. There's one Utah fan listening to this who's like, y'all don't remember Joe Williams?
How
I
about
don't.
Donnell Pumphrey in the 4th round of the Eagles?
He was supposed to be the truth. He had like 2,000 yards at San Diego State, and then he was not good.
Again,
How
you look at
about
this
here's
fourth
a
round.
name. Here's a name. Tariq Cohen.
Tariq
Human
Cohen.
joystick.
He had
North
moments.
Carolina A&T.
The human joystick. He had moments.
If you
Yeah,
want, look,
what?
he had his moments. If you want to just enjoy some highlights, please go watch Tariq Cohen's highlights.
It was great
In
until he got,
college, yeah.
he got
So
folded into a
good.
pretzel when a big man sat on him.
He was trying to make a comeback at the beginning of last year. You remember that?
I do remember that.
And he tore his Achilles.
Yeah, he was trying to make a comeback.
I'm
Yeah,
also
yeah.
I'm also going to make a comeback, and I'm going to try and play in the NFL.
Oh, you're gonna try to make the league.
I'm
I
gonna
think that's an entrance, not a comeback, Josh.
I'm gonna. He said he was making a comeback, and then didn't even get on a practice squad.
Yeah,
Now,
maybe he's
speaking
XFL or USFL.
There is a
whatever.
fourth round running back that did hit until they drafted his replacement. Is Marlon Mack was in this draft class. In the fourth round, was pretty good at Indy.
Marlon Mack.
And
Not
Wayne
half bad.
Gallman. Wayne Gallman had moments. Your guy, Ben.
No.
No. One interesting thing about this draft that we noticed, I had forgotten this. I didn't know this. In the
I forgot
fourth
too.
round, the Green Bay Packers selected Jamal Williams. I didn't realize it was this season they drafted Jamal Williams. The reason that's interesting is because in the fifth round, they drafted Aaron Jones.
Why? What? Why would you do this?
Well, it was the right
And they-
pick
It
in
was
the fifth
dart
round.
throws.
And they had
Yeah, they're
Ty
just like, yeah, we'll
Johnson
take
coming
dart
off
throws and
a
see what
not
happens.
terrible year.
But what I think that outlines is once you get to the fourth round, it's teams are taking dart throws. Teams don't know who's better at that point. Like, and I get it. They're obviously sometimes you get it wrong in the second round too. But it is really once you get to the fourth, fifth, sixth round for these teams, like we think, oh, they've got it buttoned up. They've got all the film. They've got all the metrics. They've got everything. Dude, a running back in the fourth round, they're just like, yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. Oh, we just took one in the fourth round. Let's take another one in the fifth round. Maybe he'll be better. And he was. He was a
Yeah.
lot better. He's still in the league today, still making an impact today.
For their rival.
I think that just outlines really what these teams are thinking once you get into these fourth, fifth, sixth round guys. I mean, and maybe they hit Aaron Jones. If you take a dart throw on him in the third round of a rookie draft, you're feeling real good. You're feeling real
Yeah,
good.
you probably won a championship if you did that.
But you could do the same thing with TJ Logan. I'm looking at TJ Logan. He went 4 picks ahead. You could do the exact same thing with him, and he's a decent
Light it on
kick
fire.
returner. He's a decent kick returner for 3 years and then retires.
I just know there's somebody who drafted Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, George Kittle. There's got to be somebody.
There's no way somebody drafted Austin Eckler because he was an undrafted free agent. No way.
But they picked him up.
They
They picked him up in
definitely
week
picked him up.
3.
got him on the squad. That
They
team
picked him up.
exists.
Somebody-
I want to
somebody
know
grabbed
where
him.
it is.
That team's in the Hall of Fame, is what that is.
Yeah, that team,
That's 5 straight championships.
that one didn't get orphaned. That
No,
one didn't get orphaned.
No.
you've got a top 3 running
Rest
back
of the
finish
league quit.
every year.
Hey, but hopefully we're looking back. If this class turns into what we think, well, like if these guys turn into what we think they could be, we might be saying that about this class here in the next several years. We
And
might be looking
not all
8
of them
years
have
from
to
now
even
and being
hit.
like,
If 5 of these guys hit, that's one of the best classes ever. 5 running backs. Normally there's no more than like 1 or 2.
yeah, this draft we looked at. There were
There were 8
there were
Pro
8
Bowlers.
guys, but there were 7 guys that went. No, there were 8 guys who went in the top 3 rounds. 7 of them hit,
Yeah.
and Donta Foreman was the only one who didn't, and he tore both Achilles. Like that. That is what
His
we are
body failed
hoping
him.
to get out of this draft. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
high bar, I know, but literally,
That's what
8
I'm saying.
guys
We don't even have to
taken-
get 8 to hit. We don't have to get 8 to hit.
no,
You
no,
need
no, no.
4. And it's a
If we
great.
could get, if there's 8 running backs go in the first 3 rounds, which is probably likely in this draft, if 4 of them hit, I mean, we could be looking back and be like, oh my gosh, what did we have? We have a gold mine in this draft.
Yeah.
And I feel
And
like
people
it's
are
just,
still down on
we're
it.
looking at the perfect storm with the resurgence of the running back position in the NFL as a whole, and then this class coming in. It just feels perfect timing.
Yeah, but what I wanted to outline here is not all these guys, like the landing spot they got, not all of it was sunshine and rainbows right away. Not everybody wasn't super high on all these, but the talent wins out. The talent overcomes the situation, and that's where it has to start in your rookie drafts. It has to start with draft capital and talent, and whatever happens, happens. If it takes till week 8, it takes till week 8. If it takes till week 12, it takes till week 12. But I'd rather have Joe Mixon than Samaje Perine in a great landing spot.
Ain't
I'd
that
rather
the
have
truth?
Dalvin Cook. I'd rather have Dalvin Cook than
Joe
whatever that
Williams.
got. Joe Williams in a great landing spot.
Yeah.
We're TBD on how that looks in this draft class. Like, I want to say I would rather have Amari and Hampton in a bad landing spot than Cam Scatterboo in a good landing spot. But I guess just based off college tapes, it's hard to tell yet who the true
But I
talent
would.
is. But we'll see.
I would. That's where I would be. Like if Hampton goes, 60 picks, 70 picks ahead of Scatterboo, I don't care what the landing spot is. I just don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just going to
What,
trust the talent.
To kind of close things out, I'm curious, what are y'all's favorite landing spots for running backs right now?
Oh, we did a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we
You
did.
Yeah, you did. I forgot.
Raiders,
We did
Raiders
a
for
whole
sure.
episode on that. I'm
I
actually
think
going to
we-
go
what
back
did-
and
we-
re-listen to that.
We tiered them. Who was it? I know we said Raiders were S tier. Did we
The
put
top
Chargers in
ones
the S
were-
tier? Chargers had to be S tier.
Chargers were an A.
Yeah.
Cowboys was an S. Pittsburgh was an A. Broncos was an A. Like
We almost put
those
Broncos
are,
in S. Dude,
yeah.
okay, looking back at the 2017 class and what dadgum Sean Payton did with Ingram and Kamara, I might put the Broncos as an S. If he gets
Yeah.
the running back he wants,
Yeah,
God.
we are.
If
Yeah.
if Hampton goes there,
Oh,
I saw
Lord.
Hampton was visiting Cleveland today. That would be like probably them trading
going to
up
Cleveland.
from their second round pick back into the first round.
well,
I
if
saw
he,
they were-
if he
they had
slides
him
into the
over.
second round, he could go there. If he slides.
Oh yeah. That's fine. I just don't think he's going to be there.
No, I really,
really
think
don't
the
think he's gonna be
Chargers or
there.
the Broncos. I don't think he falls past Chargers or Broncos,
Yeah. I don't either.
and he might go earlier than that.
Wouldn't be shocked if he goes at
exciting.
like 12 to the Cowboys, or heck, they might go receiver. Who knows? Who knows?
It's a good year to have second round picks, and it's a good year to not. I mean, it's a good year always to have like the 101, 102 stuff like that, but it's a good year to have like 104 through 108. I feel like, and then
It's a good
second
year to
round
have a
picks
lot of
take dart
picks.
throws. Yeah. Well, this time last year or during the season, people were like, "This isn't a great class." People were just throwing away their 2025 picks. They're like, "Oh, there's no good quarterbacks. Oh, I don't really like the receivers outside of Tet McMillan." They were just throwing these picks aside. And looking at what's incoming, it's one of the deepest class we've had in a while. So if you bought 2025 picks, you're going to reap the rewards.
It's exciting, man.
I'm stoked to finally have 101s this year.
Yep. It is exciting.
I got 2 101s and 2 102s.
Anything else
GT,
you
a lot
want to
of
hop
Hamptons.
into before we get out of here?
Nope.
No. Ready for the draft. That's all I got.
Ready for the draft.
Very excited. Very
Are we
excited.
gonna live
waiting.
stream the draft again, or are we just gonna text each other feverishly the whole night?
We might be texting each other feverishly. I looked back. I didn't realize I forgot, honestly, that we did a live stream for the draft last year. It was like a 3.5 hour live stream.
Yeah, the draft is long. The draft is long.
We and you know what's crazy is we did a 3.5 hour live stream. We stopped at I think like the Steelers pick at 20. We didn't finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the draft is
They just
long.
drag it out forever. But let me tell you, I went back and I watched that Michael Penix reaction there, and that was incredible.
Oh, did you?
It was so good.
I don't remember what happened. I think I blacked out.
You did black out. You ran out of your room, and you and your dad were yelling at each other, and it was incredible.
Yeah, my
you
dad was in
really?
the other room. I just like ran out and I was just Penix.
It was so good.
Turns out, great idea by the Falcons because Kirko Chains was awful. But at the time, I really wanted dadgummit, Dallas Turner. Because Atlanta has been searching for an edge rusher for like a decade, and we cannot get one. So
It's a good year to need an edge rusher this year. Maybe you'll get one this year.
watch, we're gonna get a corner. Watch us. We're gonna take a corner.
You're drafting a running back.
Yeah.
Amari and Hampton.
Yep. Lock it in.
Look, we
Gotta-
said this
gotta
kind of
upgrade
stuff
Tyler
doesn't
Algier.
happen, or
They
we
gotta
keep
go
saying this
defense,
kind of
right?
stuff can happen. If we don't take an edge rusher, I want us to at least get Nicky Manwari.
Yeah, you gotta take you gotta go defense. I mean, you have to.
I'm not worried about our offense. You got Penix, who I mean, obviously he's young, but you got London. Yeah, I'm not. We can run the ball. Our offense will be fine.
On that disappointment.
Yep.
That's all we got for this one, folks.
Yep.
If you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a rating, review wherever you happen to be listening to the show. That'll do it for this one, folks. We'll see you next week.